map with Delta Force is tremendous. First match of the day, China versus Japan. Cracked. What do we think about it, Coach? Are we excited for this one? Because for me, man, I cannot wait to see the best of the best in China and Japan represented here. Obviously, first map, first match of the day in this best of 3.
Yeah, a great shout. Cracked is going to be so fun to watch on LAN. And China is attacking here, by the way. So those icons are. Japan is defending to start. And then, of course, they will swap. So as we prepare for Cracked, get a chance to see a breakdown from the coach. This is something we saw before the broadcast here during the rehearsals. They've got a full breakdown of each map on the board, and they're talking strategies before the round.
So cool.
Now that they know what map they're going for, the teams are talking about what they want to do on each of these positions, on the first capture point. How do we want to defend it? This is awesome. I love that we get a chance to see this.
This is so cool to me. For those who don't know, I was in the Army. I was never this involved, okay, with the tax and stuff, right? I was just specialist, but seeing this does get me excited, and it shows how serious this game is. You know, obviously it's a game, right? At the end of the day, they're here to have fun, they're here to play, but taking it this seriously is so cool because we haven't seen things at this level. At least I haven't, Goj, when it comes to Delta Force. A lot of the stuff that we've done has been show matches. Obviously, we've had the esports side of things with the extraction stuff, but like this is so in-depth. Look at how much they're talking, they're planning it out. I don't know, man. I want to be there. I really, like, I'm super jealous that I'm not there and I don't get a chance to see this. They're writing I don't even know what they're writing, but I tell you what they're writing is serious and it is important. If I was a competitor on the other team, I'm maybe trying to take a peek.
Look at Japan's strategy here.
What is it?
Chad, if you could break this down for me, that would be great, to be honest with you. And I think they're talking about each of the different sectors and a little memeing aside on the first point, I assume. But points B1 and B2 are actually extremely important, to be honest, in Cracked. Cracked is a very difficult map on the attack side. It's something that I've seen over and over again. Attackers get stumped on. That first 2 B points, it's going to be temporary command HQ and the slums, are some of the hardest points in the game. C gets even more dicey, the military stash in the office area. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But China versus Japan about to get started. And Taylor, again, I don't know. Predictions-wise, I guess technically China is the favorite on paper, but it's LAN, man. Anything can happen, and I'm pumped to get into some gameplay.
Without a doubt, after seeing, you know, Japan's game plan, I'm excited too. I really am. No, I think they're good. I think they're having fun. And again, that's what it's all about. The fact that they're on defense, though, how do we feel about that, Goj? You broke down Crack. You discussed a couple of the points. Attack versus defense. Obviously, with China being so experienced, doing so well during the qualifiers, do you think they have an advantage being on the attacking side? Because typically that's a negative.
Yeah, we'll see. To be honest, I'm a huge fan of defense on this map. I think it's a lot easier to set up kind of trap points and choke points on this map because of the streets once you get past the first couple points. I will say A is one of the hardest points to hold in just about any map that you can watch when it comes to warfare. We watched it during the esports, during North America and Europe. You're going to see it again here in the ACL. Already A under siege and going to the way of the attackers pretty immediately. And of course, it's going to be nonstop chaos and utter obliteration. But the scorched earth policy here of throw bodies at the point until you capture it absolutely works for the attack because they're just closer to the point for the very first one of the map.
Board with Japan, one of our teams of 4, obviously, right before you, going on the defense, trying to keep China away from the A side, which gets a little capped. You know, for those that are new, I want you to pay attention to the top left. Those are going to be the tickets. 178 current, or 178 total at the moment for the attacking side. For Japan on defense, they're going to have unlimited, so they don't really care necessarily about throwing their lives away. Obviously, you do want to try and taper that off because the more lives you throw away, the less defense you're going to have. The attacking side's going to be able to run up on the point, which seems to be getting captured quite quickly. You mentioned how difficult it is, but China making quick work of it, it seems.
Yeah, again, I think for point A, the attackers just spawn so close to it that all you're trying to do is waste as many lives as humanly possible. You know you're not going to win on the very first one. It's just a matter of, can we delay it enough to where they don't have max tickets going into points B1, B2? Absolutely not the case. China came in, blew the doors wide open, and said, let's move on our merry way to these next two. Now, this is where things start to get dicey, and with Warfare in particular, we talk about this often, of the tug of war between points. How do you prioritize B1 versus B2? How do you prioritize B2 after you've captured B1 without just trading those points back the other way? A lot of fun narratives here, and it's all going to come down to team chemistry and communication from that commander to make sure all the troops move together, or they keep kind of a secret ops squad on the point to hold it while the majority of the team goes for the new cap.
China's looking pretty good. You mentioned that tug of war, obviously. Well, for B2, for China, at least from their perspective, all over it. Obviously, B1 now has to be the focus if they can potentially get that. Tanks going to play an impact here. Obviously, both sides are going to have their own. And for Japan, their focus is B1. They want to continue to hold that down as long as humanly possible. They're going to be stacking, or China's going to be over there, but Japan needs to try potentially retake it, or at least hold on to B2 if they can, which seems to be where they are bunkered up, holding it down. Japan does have an off-angle team. You see them just before you to the left of your screen. Curious how that's going to have an impact, and how impactful in general goes these flanker teams could potentially be. You know, because obviously that team, they might be few, but if they could, you know, avoid the tank, get those off angles, China could be put into a very difficult spot, an interesting spot that they're going to have to fight before they can even advance forward.
Yeah, I like that shout. I mean, two of the major pieces of understanding when you are watching Warfare, and you all have experienced this in game too, how do you use your vehicles? Not only how you use them to have, you know, great effectiveness, how do you use them and not lose them? That is everything when it comes down to these fights. And so you're seeing, here comes a very well-coordinated attack here from the China squad, pushing over towards B2, trying to open up some moment of opportunity while continuing to maintain possession of B1. This is the most coordinated attack I have ever seen in Warfare, by the way, Taylor. We watched an entire series of esports back and forth in multiple regions, but the ACL just moves differently. Crushing it right now.
What else do you expect, brother? I mean, these are the best of the best when it comes to China and Japan. More importantly, they understood they were playing for $100,000. They've got a coach. They had a board with the map on it. Okay, that makes a big difference. But I also think, let's put a lot of value. We talked about the LAN experience and nerves and things like that, but the value of having your whole team on LAN to communicate with them directly in the same room. Players usually don't get that experience when playing Delta Force unless they are in a LAN experience, or you're having a LAN party at your house. You invite your entire team over. Maybe you got it like that. But big moves coming out from China as they continue to push forward. A solo warrior gunning Japan down. I mentioned this off angle, and Japan is looking to do that, but the tank mowing down the Japan players who are pushing forward. It started with about 6 or so players from that little choke point, that little ravine, and China sniffs it out, takes them all down, and now they've got that off angle for themselves, and it looks like they're going to be pursuing to the left to maybe open up a different angle of attack. And in fact, they might not even need it. China is pushing forward very well. Japan is on the back foot.
Yeah, and something else to call out, we talked about those commanders. This is the commander mode. And so one of the things that comes with that, aside from fantastic gameplay, like a Saniva holding down a building by himself with a shield only for a moment's time, is also the commander can make commands to the team, not only vocally through the audio, but also in-game with a pointer. So if you call out a command, which I think the command they were given was hold B1, you're able to get extra points for the support system, your call-ins that you want to bring in, whether it's more vehicles for your team, whether it's guided missiles, which absolutely change the battlefield, artillery strikes or more. You get more points if you're able to execute on your commander's orders, and the commander can get extra points for giving those orders. So something else to keep an eye out for. We saw it briefly there. The Chinese commander gave the order, hold B1. Do not let it get recapped. rather than cap B2. And I really like that order because, one, it's a bit easier, but two, it is everything. They cannot start playing tug of war or they're going to be in a stabilization and a spawn blender. You've got to be in a position where your team is still working together, moving at the same time, and it's working perfectly. Look at this Chinese squad, swing indoors, wipe teams inside, and continue to tick away at this point. You don't have to do it all at once. Keep the tank on B1. It looks like the defense knows we need to swing maybe over to B1 if B2 is lost. We might have to try to play tug of war, but this tank is just kind of playing artillery strike fire from distance to try to harry somebody.
Well, and you see where Japan is currently at. The 2 players, one is already down. There goes the second, and the third one should shortly fall, and it will with the help of the tank. That's where Japan's been putting their effort to attack B1. And China's just simply not allowing it. Having that tank there has been instrumental. So Japan has put in a wonderful effort in trying to, play that back and forth tug of war, as we've been calling it on B1, but they're just not getting anywhere because China, all on the same page, moving together as one single unit. Yeah, they're looking great. They're slaying out, my goodness, lances. Beautiful shots. B1, obviously marked once again, but more importantly, B2 could quickly be capped relatively soon. Seeing this first-person perspective just shows you how good these players are on an individual level. Lances has managed to rack up at least 5 or 6 eliminations just from that small period of time that we were observing him. China tightening the vice grip, getting onto B2, but Japan, they've got numbers, and they are starting to come in with the reinforcements, but they've got to put in a lot of work because from an individual level goes, China is slaying.
Yeah, they're crushing these first 2 points. You got to remember they came in with 180 lives on this point, and well, they've only lost about 25 at this point. So they are crushing it. You know, we always talk about kind of like slaying power and value of you as an individual rather than a team. If you're able to net 5, 6, 7 kills per life, your KDA is not something that actually matters, but it does matter from a strategic standpoint. And so I really like the fact that China's doing a good job of not only not losing all of their lives quickly and not playing too aggressive, playing slow, but also are extremely organized. Here's a listen in with our commander. Let's do a quick listen in.
，A 级别动火力压，别动火力压，咱们跳，请不要前面打。
A great listen-in, Taylor, and to be honest, it sounded like we were able to listen into that commander and his squad. So that should be the top 4 or the 4 people, the 3 teammates of the commander, all not only issuing commands to the team, but also just communicating with each other.
And it sounded chaotic, but, like, let's also reel it in. It sounded great. You know, the commander, he was the main vocal one, and then he would give an order, and then everybody then would obviously receive that order and then call out what they're currently seeing. So there were chaotic moments, but for the most part, I think it sounded great. You're keeping the comms clear. When you're talking about 20 players on the battlefield, hold up! DN, my lord! Mows down 3 players, will finally drop himself, but so many great heroic moments from individuals, not only from the Japan side, but also from the side of China. But going back to communications, when you have this many troops and you are the commander, you've got to guide, 20 players on the battlefield, or obviously 19, because you're excluded. There can be some muddy comms. So the fact that it sounded that clean, to me, speaks volumes about them. And look at this tank. We're going over. Now, how do you get rid of this? How do you get it gone? Well, I guess, hey, Japan was ready for it. China has to back away, but that was nuts.
Oh, I have never seen that. And see, we always try to learn on broadcast. Apparently, there's a hop up for the tank to overlook B2. Tries to get a bit of covering fire for his team to advance and try to retake the point. But immediately, the Japan team was ready for that fight, which I love that. I mean, one of the biggest critiques I had of most of our defenses going through North American and EU esports was their unwillingness to shoot down tanks. Basically, go out of their way to get the AT4, get involved, and take out that vehicle. If you're actually able to kill the tank, massive boon for your team to have a vehicle advantage. And here he goes again, healed back up. Welcome to the party. I'm coming in with some serious firepower. You better clear this point, and I'm gonna make sure you get off, or you're gonna lose your life as you try to run away. This is unreal.
It's awesome. I love Delta Force. This, by the way, the spectator client in Delta Force is just beyond belief. Such a fan. Japan's getting their own take, and he's going to go ahead and reposition behind. I would like him to get up there and start challenging and take himself. Meanwhile, we transfer our perspective to first person, and you can just see how chaotic it is. You've got a tank from China on top of the wall shooting missiles at you. Meanwhile, you got China also full sending into these CQC fights. But now let's sober it up a bit. You mentioned the lives. We're now down to 126. Granted, China is still very healthy, but 126 starting to get a little bit low. I'm very impressed with the way Japan's been holding on, but China finally seems to be making some great headway. They're getting onto B2. I think Japan now is calling the orders, maybe back away and start setting up defensively for the next points.
Yeah, the problem right now is this tank that is holding down B1 has windows of opportunities to harry B2 and then back up and make sure B1 hasn't been taken down. This is really impressive organization from that China team in particular to make sure they keep their vehicle alive with engineers, but also cap these points. We are moving to point C with 4 lives short of maximum. Here's a look at that leaderboard. Of course, we've got a cat at the top. That is one of our players inside the tank, and you can see why they're at the top from a score perspective. 37 assists from that covering fire and harrying firepower of that tank while maintaining position on the point. They're absolutely going to be one of the score leaders on the day.
All right. Japan did a wonderful job holding back China on the B1, B2 split. Now they have to try it once again on C1, C2. Live still very healthy, or tickets very healthy, excuse me, for the China side of things. And as we move into C1 and C2, as we do have a missile coming down, a missile strike, how effective will it be? Very, very effective. Japan uses that. China hurt. Now they've got to go up and try and get some reses.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you got to pay attention to with these guided missile strikes is there's actually 2 main things. One, how much value do you get out of them, right? I think it knocks back most people, but it's just about clearing points. And let's be very clear, too. This military stash point, C1, immediately gone. China is all over it. They've got everybody they could possibly have on C1 already, and it's going to force it again into that tug of war of being able to hold a point and then aggressively play against the defense on point 2. This is a really, really strong strategy for being able to play not only inside of these C objectives for a while, but also have a power position you can play from. The struggle that attackers find on this map is being too scattered. China is grouping up as a unit all on one point, capturing C1, ready to take C2. The other thing you got to remember with guided missiles is if you drop enough on C1, that building goes bye-bye, and that point no longer exists. So it's the easiest point to capture for the attackers, but you actually can't afford to lose it if you have enough guided missiles. Now, they've become quite expensive in your call-in list. If you are commander orders, maybe, and you get a lot of kills, potentially you get a couple per person, but quite difficult to do. So watch out for more of those missiles. They absolutely can change these fights.
Tanks moving in once again. Big fan of the tanks. I was looking at chat, Go, since, you know, it is a watch party. We get a chance to look at it and have fun with them. They were just blown away by the tank climbing the wall. I saw one of our viewers actually said he's able to do that on a different map as well, which is pretty cool. Shout out to you if you figured that one out. But yeah, they're loving it. They're liking the tank action. I am too. And clearly it's been truly instrumental. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. We really are for Japan. We have a listen in, and we heard China before. Now let's listen to Japan.
Well, whether or not there were comms, potentially dead silence because the ominous nature of their position on the map right now, but likely just getting all of those comms sorted. Regardless, I like the call out there. I would love to hear the Japan team comms at this point because I know I would be scatterbrained. I would be losing it trying to kind of keep hold of everybody in position to try to hold down this last point. This is the crazy thing about Cracked. It is not a very long map in comparison to some of the others, and because of that, it's represented by the total lives that are given to the attackers. Some of our other maps, you have 300 plus lives. This one, you only have 180, and attackers, look how patient they're playing this. again, this is something that you don't see outside of highly coordinated efforts here in Warfare. This is something I love seeing on broadcast for the very first time, is a team on the attack not losing their lives willy-nilly thinking, oh, I can be the hero and I'm just going to run at my opponents. No, it's coordinated. Look, they're all going. 2 potentially being left on the point, everybody else moving as a unit. Over top, this beautiful free cam is showing us this incredibly coordinated effort from China. I love this level of gameplay. This is unmatched across the world.
This, and I hope you viewers at home can appreciate what you're seeing in the coordination, the smokes going down on each street, on each choke point that they have to cross. Beautifully timed. As soon as those smokes hit, you know there's going to be a player crossing. You just watching that on the overhead view, you start to truly appreciate the coordination, right, the attacking side has, obviously, with China going through the streets and now pushing over. And you're right, that patience, that level of patience was represented too on B1 and B2. You know, they stayed on B1 for the longest time, just taking away the defensive positions of Japan before they finally pushed forward. They weren't too hasty, and you can't be too hasty. You've got to play your time and manage your lives. And I've been looking at the ticket score on the top left. China hasn't really lost a ton. They've never dropped below 100 throughout the entirety of this attacking side for best, or this best of 3 for game 1. They've never dropped below 100. They have looked so strong and coordinated. Their comms were clear and concise. They're looking to go away with a clean sweep. Japan, they've got to get to work. A guided missile's coming in. China's about to take this.
Yeah, this guided missile could be everything. Here comes the artillery strikes on the left, and on the forefront, here it is, the guided missile to hopefully open up this point or take back a point that's needed. And unfortunately for Japan, they fall incredibly quickly. China able to close things out in a dominant fashion. Wow, that's not only looking good for their overall score line, but it is certainly looking good for their tiebreakers as well. Being able to do that with that many lives remaining, if things do trade here, I can only expect